Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call a regular meeting to Wallingford Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission to order. The date is May 1st. The time is 7:02. Will you join me in pledging allegiance to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with a roll call. Allie?
Eileen McKean,
Nick Kern. Jim Vitale.
Deborah Phillips.
Okay. Hi, Dave. No problem. Everything's fine. Okay, at this time, the consideration of the minutes of the April 3rd meeting. Is there any corrections, modifications to the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have one item. Actually, Attorney Senaviva brought it to my attention. So, okay, page 11. Just above where it says number 6 Brentwood Drive, you see at the bottom it says number 6 Brentwood Drive.
Yes?
I'd like to add a paragraph that would say, see below under violations, or see more below under violations. And then on page 12, I would like to...
Wait a minute. Are they connected, page 12 and
Yes,
11?
here's what happened. The page 11 is talking about the new applications received,
Okay.
But the commission broke into a discussion of the violation. So, Mr. Senaviva brought it to my attention that, it should be under violations. So on the page 12, I'm suggesting where it says violations number 1, I'm suggesting a sentence to be added here that said, the commission discussed this violation issue under new applications number 5 above. Because there was quite a lengthy discussion, and somebody who didn't know that wouldn't know that they better pay attention to all this stuff on page 12. Are you following what I'm saying?
Well, okay, so we discussed East Center Street problem, the violation at East Center Street. Or is this discussion an application? This discussion's an application. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no. On page 11.
On page 11.
That's
right.
a new application. We should have just received it and marched on. And then under violations, on the next page, page 12, that's where we should have done a full-blown discussion of the violation. But that's okay. I'm not suggesting we move how time unfolded. I'm suggesting just add one sentence of clarification.
All right. Okay. And what's that sentence say?
On page 12, it'll say...
First of all, page 11?
Page 11, it will say...
See page 12.
The last thing for that item would say, see below under violations, or see more below under violations.
Okay.
And on page 12, it would say, for that item, agenda item, it would say, the commission discussed this violation above under new applications, number 5.
Okay. I mean, that's blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure that's the right wording in minutes.
Yes.
Well, you get the gist of what it is.
Well, but what are we voting on? We're going to table this until the...
Oh, no.
Well-
That's the amendment. So people, if they agree with that amended minutes or the correction, if they agree with that, they approve it with that correction.
And the correction is blah, blah, blah?
No, the correction would just be the one sentence on page 11 and the one sentence on page 12.
And what's the sentence on page 12?
Page 12, the sentence is, the commission discussed this violation above under receipt of new applications.
On page 11.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a footnote.
Okay? Any questions, Commission? All right. Then, if no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve with the corrections.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of April 3rd, 2019 be approved with the modifications suggested by the environmental planner tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Ally?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, going on to old business, application A 14-7.2, 195 Chimney Hill Road, Sunwood. Request for bond release.
That's not ready.
Okay, application A 19-2.2, 14 Brookview Avenue, John Santa Maria, stream bank stabilization.
Yes, I'm John Santa Maria.
You get the big seat, John.
I'm John Santa Maria, owner on 14 Brookview Avenue.
Is that microphone on?
Yeah.
It is?
Maybe you want to pull it closer?
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yeah, and
Computer.
then pull it closer to you, then we can hear you better.
Okay.
Okay, Aaron, you've got some issues, not issues, but you've been working on this with this gentleman?
Yes. We called in Roman Rosinski of the Southwest Conservation District because he's an expert on stream bank stabilization. And I went out to the site with him and the owner and the contractor, who is Pete Kennedy. We all met at the site and we kicked it around, and then we tabled it at the last meeting to allow time for Roman to get his report in. His report came in, and the owner, Mr. Santa Maria, put it in that purple envelope that went out in your packet on Thursday night, and assembled it there. I also sent out on Thursday my environmental planner's report, which on the back, stapled onto the back, I believe it was stapled, maybe it wasn't stapled, but in the packet was the Water Division memorandum on it, because the Water Division brought to my attention that I had sent them a referral, and at first they thought there was no issue, but then they realized the sewer line runs across, not near the river, but it kind of runs across where the access route, where they're planning to come in off, it's Jody Drive, correct?
Correct.
Which is Mr. Santa Maria's sister owns the house opposite the brook on Jody Drive. So they're planning to come in the route that way, which is fine with everybody as long as they meet the recommendations of the sewer division regarding that sewer pipe, because they're going to have to cross over that sewer pipe. So they sent a marked up drawing. Did you guys get the drawing that was sent? Yeah, okay, thank you, Eileen. The sewer division marked up a drawing and showed where the sewer line went. And in my environmental planner's report, I incorporate that as a condition of approval.
Yeah, just wait. Wait,
Any comments, Sally?
No, I don't have anything.
Dave?
no?
Debbie?
No.
Are you in agreement with all the recommendations that the environmental planner placed?
Yes, and I reviewed them with the contractor briefly verbally, and I'll be supplying them with a copy of the recommendations.
A lot of them are basic construction practices, so I don't think I think they're good, solid recommendations.
Correct.
Okay, then if there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion regarding significant activity.
See, this is, okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that application A19-2.2, 14 Brookville Avenue, John Santa Maria, be deemed not a significant activity.
Motion made and second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Ally?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Motion made. Motion made to approve the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that application 19-2.214 Brookville Avenue, John Santa Maria, be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in Environmental Planners Report dated April 25th, 2019.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded, is there any discussion? Call for a vote. Ally?
Yes?
Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, so I guess we're all set.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thanks. Okay. Application A19 3.3 2 Taylor Lane, William and Kara Shields. Good evening.
Good evening.
Aaron, would you like to lead on, please?
Okay, well, in the second packet that went out Friday, that's the one that went out Friday, I have an environmental planners report. And it's quite lengthy because I've attached all sorts of drawings and just to the back. First is a GIS aerial image from the assessor's office, just to get you oriented where this is with Maple. They're in a corner lot with Maple View Road and Taylor Lane, so they're on a corner lot. All right. Then the next is the 1998 subdivision plan that shows the rear of their lot as wetlands. Okay, the next one that I attached is their first, their application, the first plan, which was stapled to their application, the original application on March 8th. So that's their first plan with the pool turned perpendicular to their house, which required a lot more filling going down there into what used to be wetlands. But they had submitted a report from David Lord, who's here tonight, that they had him go out there and he says, no, it's not wetlands, it's all Cheshire soil. So I go out there and my boots are in 8 inches of water and I go, well, could we turn this pool the other way? And the owner indicated, well, we always wanted it the other way, but we couldn't because we need a variance because it'll poke out on it's not enough distance on the side yard. So I said, yeah, but you know, if you have to fill all the way in there, you're filling, this is wet. So anyway, so they did, I don't know if they've gotten the variance or they're about to get it.
We don't need
We
it.
never applied for one.
Yeah,
Oh.
because they're ripping up part of our patio to pull it in.
Okay.
So they had more room.
Great. So now your second drawing that you've got there is, it's now, runs along with the house. It's parallel to the house and the patio. And that requires less fill. So that pulled it, and then the photographs show that pulls it out further back. And I'm comfortable with that, with them going about 16 feet of fill. I was out there with the owner and we measured it. You know, what my point is David Lord doesn't think it's wetland soils, he thinks it's Cheshire soils. If the commission wants, they can retain a soil scientist to make sure it is not wetland soils, but my position is it's wet. Every time I go out there, it's sopping wet. So it could be Cheshire soils, it's just sopping wet, doesn't drain right or something. So that's where I'm coming from, and I feel comfortable with this design. But it took a while. It took several meetings, conversations, and it just took a few months to get it to this point.
Okay, and you are comfortable with the plan marked April 17th, 2019?
I am. I just want the owner to clarify, because I thought they needed like a 3-foot variance on this, on what would be the left side of this drawing.
No, because they're pulling up the patio.
You have to say your name into the...
Kara Shields, 2 Taylor Lane. And per Tom, he came out and he measured it, our pool guy, and he's ripping up part of the patio, so then it brings it in, so then it is 50 feet off of the street.
Okay, this is a change that I wasn't briefed on yet, so that we're doing this right now.
No.
Is it on this side or the Maple View side that you're changing it tonight?
Correct.
Yeah, I thought Tom had come down and given you the new drawing showing how it was moved in.
This is, on the April 17th drawing, it is actually noted that there's 50 feet
Right.
from Maple View to
Correct.
the pool.
Pool with the,
Correct, but
does not,
he was telling me you needed the variance on this side of, not on the Maple View side, that's good, that's 50 feet, but on the other side.
We don't need it, we didn't need a variance.
It doesn't go that far.
It doesn't go that far.
All right, well, be that as it may, it's not a wetland issue. If they actually find they need a variance, they gotta go to the ZBA for that.
Yeah, I mean,
Listen
go
to this.
ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, whether or not whether you not need a variance,
That's
we
different.
don't do variances here, so
Correct.
let's, okay.
Correct.
But I mean, looking at your sketch, I see this 50-foot line, you've got your pool, just about
Right.
just about at it, so he's moved it back far enough. Now, on what's on the other side, I don't know, we don't do variances here. But it would seem that your map for inland purposes is fine.
Okay. Just for my own information, this variance you're talking about, this is a variance to your property line? That's what they're
we've
talking
never,
about?
not getting
we've
a
never
variance.
discussed going for a variance.
Yeah, 'cause we
Do
didn't,
you need one?
no,
No, not that, according to.
it's in
our-
50 feet.
No. I understand the 50 feet. That's not the issue. It's the other side, for the property line between you and your neighbor. Is that the ZBA variance?
No, we measured it
No.
out. We had our
Tom
property
has told
surveyed.
us, our pool person has told us that we can go, he's gonna go the allowed amount up to the neighbor's boundary line.
So there's no issue on a variance?
That's what we're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Their
They don't
their
need one.
redesign,
There's
their
nothing to be
redesign
talked about,
eliminated the need for a variance.
right?
Great,
Good.
yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, and did you have a list of recommendations? So you had some, but
Yes.
we can addition, yeah, fill limit line and erosion controls. Did you read
page-
Ms. O'Hare's recommendations or conditions of approval? And you have no problem with those conditions? Your contractor has no problem?
Yeah.
Where are Oh,
And one on the other side.
okay.
And I want to reiterate that please have your contractor call me a few days in advance to schedule me to come out and check the erosion controls before he starts digging.
Okay, and why do they need a wetland permit if they're outside the 50-foot upland review area?
Because it's wet. So under the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Act, I'm treating it like under the Watercourses part, in other words, a swamp, a wet meadow, or marsh, a freshwater marsh, or a wet meadow it's wet, so it's considered saturated. I'm not a soil scientist, I don't look for models, I don't know, David Lord said it's Cheshire, it might be Cheshire, it's just, it grows wetland plants, the wetland plants are all over the place, there's no trees because trees don't want to grow there.
And we do have a soil scientist that doesn't feel it's a wetland soil, is that correct?
Correct, and that's fine, maybe it's not a wetland soil,
Maybe
but it's
not.
sopping wet.
So when the motion's made, it's got to reiterate that they have a permit, but
But there may not be a.
there may not be wetlands
issue.
involvement.
Okay.
Okay, we seem to be more than happy to give you a permit because we're not sure you're in any wetland or any upland review area, but it certainly takes care of one item. Okay, entertain a motion, then I'll go through formally what we do, just so all your bases are covered then.
Okay, not significant activity
Okay,
first.
that's right. I'll entertain a motion on significance of this activity.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that application 19-3.3 Two Taylor Lane, William and Kara Shields, be deemed not to be a significant activity.
Motion made and seconded.
Second.
Any comments? Calls for a vote. Ally?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes?
Debbie?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Okay, we'll try this. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, application 19-3.3 Two Taylor Lane, William and Kara Shields, be approved with the understanding that there may not be a wetlands implication and subject to the terms and conditions specified in the environmental planners report dated April 26, 2019.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have two. How are you going to stabilize around the pool when you bring the fill in? What's going to hold it there from washing down into closer to the wetlands? Is the
That would
contract?
be our contractor, which is maybe hay bales, or I'm not exactly sure, maybe a silt.
That would be when he's building it, but
Yeah.
supposedly gonna grade it.
That
Slope-
was
a
Aaron's
sloping-
suggestion.
And how,
You got to use the microphone.
Microphone.
Speak into the microphone, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was under the impression he was going to grade it, sloping towards,
out towards the wetlands?
yes.
All right, so I would be interested in letting Aaron know how you're going to stabilize it so it doesn't wash out into the wetlands.
Oh,
Right.
I see what you mean. You don't mean, the silt fence is gonna be there, but you mean after it's all done, grass seed or something?
Right.
Well, I talked to them about, it's gotta be stabilized, and it's good that they're doing now, so it's all stable before next winter. We gotta get it stabilized with grass seed, I guess.
The way it's been raining, I'd rather know what's going to be stabilization now than after the fact, because I don't want to see it go out into the wetlands. So you need to come up with a better plan than just, yeah, they're going to have said fence. Because when it blows out the said fence, then we're in trouble. So talk to the contractor and see what his backup plan is so that it doesn't start washing away when he puts the pool in. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, and like straw mulch would be a good idea, seed, straw mulch. But then also, if it's too steep, maybe he's gonna have to add a erosion control blanket. I'm not sure how steep the angle's gonna be on
Well,
that.
every foot he goes out, he's a foot closer to the wetlands.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not opposed to the pool, I think it's great, but I want to make sure it's stabilized.
Yep.
The area he's disturbing is going to be stabilized. And the other thing is, I didn't hear anything about placards. Aren't you on the kick with the placards?
that's a good idea.
Oh, then,
You can add those to the condition of approval.
I would on the placards, yes.
Did we?
No.
Oh, okay, so you have to vote on it. So yeah, add it to the two conditions I have, and you can add that as the third condition.
Well, you have to add it on because you already made the motion.
No, but Mr. Chairman, I'd like to modify my motion
Okay.
to include another condition of approval, which is that of placing placards on the property.
Excuse me, can I ask what that is?
Yeah, because we don't know what the cost of something like that is.
It's a little tag about 6 by 4, and it goes on a tree or a post. It just lets everybody know, the tree huggers, that you're close to the wetlands.
Okay.
It's just something we started
Oh,
about
okay.
15 years ago.
Okay.
There's numerous places, and all the places that encroach close to the wetlands, we have the people where they put a 4 by 4 post and they put a little sticker on, just letting people know that you're bordering the wetland area. I've seen them on trees, nailed to trees. We prefer a 4 by 4 post, and I think it's every 50 or 75 feet.
Well, the commission can decide how many feet apart. In this case, it's a wide open field, so they'd have to put it on a post, maybe 2 posts total.
No.
The one interesting thing on that is it's somebody's backyard. It's not going into a subdivision. I mean, it'd have to be the homeowner to affect these wetlands compared
Right.
to some other sites.
Yeah,
Right.
no, but,
No, put them in. It's just,
no,
Just a-
I guess,
all right, there's a motion
okay, never
made
mind.
and there's an amendment to the motion. Is there a second to the amended motion?
Yeah, second.
Okay. Is any more discussion?
No.
Okay. Then we're going to vote on the motion as amended. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Ally?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'll point out, you get those placards from my office, they're free, and I have an instruction page on the posts and how you put them on.
Okay. Application A, 19, 3.7, 988 East Center
Thank
Street.
you.
Thank you.
We're good?
Okay, all
Thank
set.
you very much.
You're done.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's yours. You gave me back the other one? Or take. Yeah, that's the color. Okay, good, we good? Brentwood Drive? Oh.
No. No, I don't know who that is. There's no mustache on it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You can pull that forward, that easel forward.
Oh, just real quick, you mean, real quick? She can send you one? Oh, shoot. Yeah, and got it. Oh, here's one, here's an extra one. Here's an extra one. We give them two to me, because we had it. Shoot, I was out there. Jesus.
The interesting thing is it shows here where the pipe is open and this, they've got this all filled in. They've got this, this all filled in here. They've got about 500 feet addition left in this area. They had a dam and a blockage of water here, and they cut a pipe, they cut a trench through, and the brook's about 3 feet down, so there's about 3 feet of fill in this whole area here. The soda ash that they're on, that's been up in the wetlands.
There's your copy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For your record, my name is Dennis Senaviva. I'm an attorney with the Senaviva Law Firm. I represent the owner and applicant Benchmark Land Development LLC. To my left is Marcus Potok. He is an engineer with the firm of Godfrey Hoffman. He'll be making the presentation up on the board shortly, Mr. Chairman. To my right is David Lord, our soil scientist. He has a report that he'll be reviewing with the commission tonight. David Palumbo, a member of the applicant LLC, is also present. He's sitting behind us in the small seats. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we've been before you now for 11 months. Not on this application, but under violations. And so we're here, based upon the recommendation of this commission, I think 2 months ago, to prepare a master plan, to come back with a master plan. We've presented 2 plans, one in September and one in November. Those are plans for remediation. Those reports that you have in your file from David Lord, again, who's prepared a revised report based upon the current proposal. So the master plan is designed to address the previously unauthorized filling of the wetlands, which is acknowledged, and to address the overall redevelopment of the site with the creation of new wetlands. So the plan is to bring to the town of Wallingford a proposal which brings benefits to that location, to the neighborhood, and to your wetlands and watercourse system. Marcus will explain the site design as it relates to the commission's concerns, and then David will explain the impact that his remediation plan has on the overall integrity of the wetlands in this location. What I can do later, Mr. Chairman, if it's of interest to the commission, is go through the history of the last few months, but perhaps we'll wait until the presentation is made and then address any comments that...
I'm not sure you want to do that.
Okay, all right. So with that, let me put Mr. Potok up to the microphone and the easel. Oh, one quick thing. Those of you who've gone out there in the last day or two, I'm sure many of you have, you've seen that there's been an awful lot of work done. I know at the last meeting, I submitted a letter asking for an extension of time to take out some of the gravel in that driveway area that was of particular concern to this commission. And I was told by Ms. O'Hare that that request was not granted, that you still wanted the gravel removed by May 1st. If you've been there, you've seen that it has been removed. There's silt fence along the wetlands, and Marcus has pictures to provide to the commission. So in a response to the commission's direction, that work has been done.
Well, seeing you brought it up, and I don't know if that belongs under violation or under this application, but you may have scratched some gravel off, but you've got 2 or 3 feet of fill on top of the wetlands. So you have not removed the fill that's on the wetlands. Where your silt fence, you start from 0 to 2 feet in elevation. You have a dam on the other side of the wetlands. You don't show the ponding over here. You don't show the trench that you dug to try and get the water out of here because it's all flooded. You didn't open up the pipe where it was originally.
That's correct.
So
Yeah.
you're a long way from doing what was instructed, and that was to remove what you had put into the wetlands.
And then I'm sure you have your town engineering staff comments that they prefer the plan that we have before you tonight. It is much better for the town, it's better for North Airland Road's drainage, and Mr. Baltramitis has provided that information to your environmental planner and to me.
How could they, I'm not going to question the engineering department because I haven't seen that report, but this function of wetlands, with that pipe being opened in the middle, the flow of east of Airline Road, when the pipe under the railroad couldn't handle it, the wetlands handled it.
That's right there.
Okay, so now that's eliminated. You've got this thing as a straight pipe going across. It doesn't have, well, now you got a hole knocked into this manhole thing that you built to let it feed back in. But it's not functioning as it was. It's not functioning as it did for 100 years. You've created this parking lot. You created this 500 square feet or better of additional parking up in this area. I don't see where our direction was trying to get this back to remove what damage you did to the wetlands in the system, and that you didn't do. This is a little Band-Aid to make us feel good. They do show the brook, but you've got 3 feet, 4 feet on that side that's filled in. So I don't know where you want to take us with this, the saying that they're trying to tell us that these pictures are this we've done all this wonderful thing out there.
Well, that's our position, Mr. Chairman, and we believe that the work that's been completed is to benefit the site, to make it more compliant with the direction of this commission, rather than ignoring the request. I mean, at the end of the day, we've decided to honor the request of the commission, and that's why the work's been completed.
But that isn't what you did isn't the request of the commission. You've missed it.
Well,
So if you think this is better for the site, you should have removed it all, then come in with your plan, and then we see if you let you refill it. But you just determined you're going to put a 2-foot dam across this wetland over here.
The impact on the, well, again, I'll let the experts address the issue of the impact on the wetlands, but you have a wetlands that has one function, that had one function, water retainage. It now, under this new proposal, will have several functions, including not only the water retainage, but also will have botanical life. It'll have some vibrancy to it where it had none before. It looks like a lawn. There's nothing there. And so this proposal...
It was a meadow wetland. I mean, when you say it had no life going on, it had all kinds of life. It functioned very well. I don't know what you're going to add to it. We haven't got to that point. But I don't know what you're going to add to it that it didn't have before.
Well, it won't be ponding in locations where there's no pre-treatment of water as it exits the site. There is also, again, additional plantings that will be identified in the remediation plan. There's the creation of over 900, creation of over 900 square feet of new wetlands area to assist in that location. Again, there's been an incredible effort on the part of the applicant and his team to try to make this something that benefits the site.
Unfortunately, you did not satisfy the request of the commission, and it took you 11 months to do it, under your own words. You've been here 11 months. It took you 11 months to get back, and when I don't want to say threaten you, but it took you 11 months to get what you think is an improvement, rather than get the material removed and start over again.
Well, each time that I'll go through the history. Let me do that for you, Mr. Chairman. So we met on June 27th, 2018. That was the notice of violation. And we had filed a special permit application in April of 2018 with the Planning and Zoning Commission. When Erin went to the site, she determined there had been some unauthorized work that was done at the property. The applicant described the work that had been done in a letter to the town dated April 6, 2018. And that was basically removing a mountain of crap, of construction debris from the site that was in the wetlands in the upland review area. The environmental planner's report dated July 13th, 2018 said that she was meeting with the engineering department on July 18th of 2018. The letter from the environmental planner dated August 6, 2018 told us to appear at the September 5th meeting, so that's when we were told to appear. We prepared a wetlands application, not quite as elaborate as the one before you today, on September 5th with a site regrading plan. The environmental planner's report dated August 31st of 2018 recommended that we not submit an application. I wasn't sure then why. I remain unclear why today. Mr. Lord was hired to assist in the preparation of that application in September of 2018. We delivered the wetlands restoration and creation plan prepared by David Lord at the September 5th meeting of the Wetlands Commission, the same night as your Bristol-Myers project was before you. We were told to return on October 3rd. No information from the engineering department had been provided to the environmental planner as of that date. We appeared on October 3rd, we made a presentation, and this commission continued the matter to November of the 2018 meeting. On November 2nd, 2018, a memorandum was received by your staff from the town engineer recommending some changes to the original site regrading plan. All of those recommendations have been incorporated into the plan that's before you this evening. That's why he supports it. The environmental planner's report dated November 6th of 2018 incorporated the town engineer's comments, talked about her site visit where she went out to the site with the applicant, encouraged the commissioners to do the same, and that there was a line out there to show the distinction, the split between this parcel and the railroad property. Because when you look at the property from the street, it looks like it's all the piece before you. It's about 2/3 of the piece as you look at it from the road, because again, the railroad owns 45 feet or so from its track to the west. We came to your meeting on December 5th, 2018. David Lord presented the remediation plan to you. It was revised, designed to improve the wetlands function, create new wetlands. The commission took no action on the remediation plan and continued the matter to January. The January meeting was canceled. This team met with the engineer, Mr. Potek's office, in January of 2019 to prepare a master plan, as had been suggested by Commissioner Kern. The wetland meetings at February 6, 2019, we appeared and discussed the master plan. The project engineer met with Water and Sewer Division, Mr. Kruger. We were tabled. March 6, 2019, the minutes of that meeting suggest that the chairman wants the driveway removed, that's what it says, by May 1st, 2019. I have those minutes for you, Mr. Chairman. After the March 12th to March 12th, 2019 meeting with the environmental planner and the town planner about the master plan, we filed this new application on March 28th, which is the one before you. I sent a letter to this commission for the April 29 meeting, indicating that I was not able to attend, but we were prepared to present our application tonight and asked you to extend the May 1st date to remove the driveway. That date was not extended, I was told by the planner. And then we have received a memorandum dated April 24th, 2019 on the new plan from the Water and Sewer Division recommending conditions of approval. And today I spoke with the town engineer indicating that because we had incorporated his recommendations into the new plan, that he thought it was acceptable to him, and he had communicated that to your planner. So each month, all the time, efforts are being made to try to address the concerns. And I think this commission gave us some good direction, saying put together a master plan. It was smart. It's the right thing, I think. My client found it acceptable, certainly, and that's what we've been doing. That's why we're here. And we have before you what we think is a good plan, not only to remediate the site, but also to improve the wetlands and to expand the wetlands. And that's what we want to present.
When you talk about town engineering and you talk about water and sewer, they have issues and they do a good job at what they do. I'm not sure what their recommendations are specific to the problem at hand with wetlands. I'm not sure I've seen a report. Is there a recent report from engineering that says this is okay to pipe this straight across?
There's not a recent report. I got a verbal okay today from Rob.
That said what?
No, he looked at the, two things I asked of him. I asked him to look at the photograph that shows how it's draining, just to make sure he didn't have an issue with how they drained it over the weekend or whenever that work was done. And he said, no, he had no particular issue with it, the way it was draining, the way they did, the new work they did over the weekend. Vis-a-vis, they did work in the town, to be clear, they did work in the town drainage easement. That's what we're discussing. There's like a 15-foot wide, 20-foot wide drainage easement that goes across there. So they did work that affects the town pipe there. So that's why I was asking him. He's okay with that. As far as the design, he hasn't had time to look at the design that was referred to him with the new application.
So he really hasn't voiced his opinion.
That's not true. That's not
on
true.
wetlands.
Okay?
No, I mean, he
It's a
hasn't
little
written me.
offensive. It's not true. He called me today, and he said that he met with you, Aaron, and that he went through, he looked at the plans, he saw that all of the proposals that he made in November were incorporated in the plans, and that he let you know that this was acceptable. That's what he told me. So,
He verbally told me that we're talking about the pipe, yes. Yes to what Dennis said for the pipe. He hasn't reviewed the rest of the application, and I asked him a question about elevation, which if the way the water flows, and he said, no, it doesn't flow right, they've got to redo this. But I didn't know if we wanted to get into everything that Rob said verbally versus, I usually get a report, but it's what I'm talking about now is in their proposed design, the water is supposed to flow gradually, the whole process stone area is supposed to flow gradually toward East Center Street, where they've on their property, there's one catch basin, and it's supposed to all flow into this one catch basin.
Okay, but that is the future plan.
Future, yeah.
Yeah, that's the future plan. We're still working on this violation area.
Right, but I want to clarify, Rob is not okay with the plan. He's okay with that portion of the plan that deals with, as Dennis said, with the drainage easement area and what they want to do to the pipe that is owned by the town of Wallingford and how they want to correct it and add to it and such, that kind of thing.
Well, do you want to keep going on this, or do you want to present your plan?
I'd like to present the plan.
It's your dime.
Thank you. Mr. Potek.
Good evening. For the record, Marcus Puttock, Godfrey Hoffman Associates out of North Haven. Good evening, Commission. So the plan that we created, we tried to break into two separate portions. The gravel area that was existing, where the old buildings were and whatnot, a substantial portion of that area also drained towards the wetland and the pipe that goes across under the railroad in the existing condition, both in 2008, 2015, 2018. So prior to this violation and since this violation, this portion of the gravel area all flowed to there. In trying to create this master plan, we attempted to maintain that flow, that direction of flow, and we couldn't get it to work where there wasn't any flooding conditions. And so to alleviate that and to maintain a clean water system within this wetland, we decided to pitch all of the gravel area that we are proposing that which is to remain and that which we are proposing for turning movements of vehicles. We propose to pitch towards the front, towards East Center Street, towards a force entry system, which is a manufactured oil-grade water separator, which will remove particles all the way down to, I believe it's 8 microns. So this cleans the water extremely well, captures and contains any sediment, any oil within it, prior to any of that water departing our site. So from that system, it's going to go into an underground containment system, and then out through the existing storm sewer in East Center Street. So as far as water from our, that may be collecting any kind of sediment or oils or anything from our proposed activity, those are being contained and dealt with far away from the wetlands, more than 200 feet away from the wetlands, or 150 feet away from the wetlands. And we felt that that would be a better situation if we flow it away from where the wetlands are. So this pink line designated on my plan up here, it is essentially a berm at the edge of that gravel parking area that that will prevent any water, even if there was a lot of water, from flowing up over it and into the wetlands. So we are essentially containing all of this water, flowing in that direction, and any water that comes from North Airline Road or overland in the existing wetland and in our created wetland area, as well as our upland buffer. The proposal for the storm drainage and the reconnection of this wetland to the pipe and whatnot is essentially a new, digging a smaller hole, which is not there now, but in that grass area or in the area of straw that you see there in the photos that we took, making a depression in there so that the water can get into a pipe and be piped away. But however, creating a better situation through plantings and whatnot, which Mr. Lord will get into, so that water, which is clean, stays clean. The water that comes off North Airline does not go into that wetland. It is piped away. Granted, it goes into the wetland across the street, but it always did. There is no requirement for this owner to clean that water, but and so we feel that the situation that we've created with a much improved wetland where we create some and we create a much larger buffer. We have a 43-foot buffer of new vegetated quality vegetation between the existing wetland and our proposed activity. And that's at the closest point where we would have that activity. That essentially is the plan for the restoration is in large part the same as it was when we previously proposed it, although we have pulled it substantially away from the wetland from our original proposal. This pulls it up all the way to the back of the existing building, which we propose to remove and construct a new building out the front, which would be serviced by city water and a septic system. That essentially is the new proposal. We feel that this is a much better situation than was existing and is currently existing. Entertain any questions you might have.
You're starving the wetlands. You've just convinced me that you're starving the wetlands. You've taken the water that was half of the parking lot and that went to the wetlands is now going to East Center Street. You're piping the brook right from the Airline Road across and not feeding the wetlands with that water coming off Airline Road. And you think you're going to create additional wetlands, but yet you're not adding any water to the system, to that area. I haven't seen anything impressing me that this is feeding the wetlands. This is actually starving. This plan is starving the wetlands. When there was an interruption in the pipe, whatever caused it, went up in the wetlands, it fed the wetlands, and then it went back out again.
Okay, I don't agree with you. The majority of the water that is, all of the water that you see in that ponding right now, that you say, oh, there's ponding and all of that there, all of that water comes from overland. None of that comes from the pipe off of North Airline Road, and why would you want it to? Why would you want the water from North Airline Road in your wetland?
Why not? Wetlands can process that water. It's processing it across the street.
Okay.
But the interesting thing you just point out, that the people are talking about this being man-made and other issues with this wetlands, but yet there's plenty, you're just indicating that that's the natural course of water through that area.
Yes.
Without the airline railroad, or airline road.
And we're going to maintain that. We're not changing.
Well, perhaps, Marcus, let's try to make it a little bit clearer, because it is unclear to me. The North Airline Road, that drainage easement handles the North Airline Road drainage.
Yes.
It's been there for several years.
Yes.
I think what the chairman is saying is that before we enclosed or covered the end of that pipe, which is really on railroad property, well, before we enclosed that or covered it, that would pond back onto the wetlands. I think Mr. Lord's going to be testifying that the water that supplies the wetlands on the north side of this property comes from the north, a sheet flow from the north.
Yes, through the weather.
Okay, so it doesn't come from North Airline Road, from where the piping is done?
No, it does not. The piping takes it down, this is David Lord for the record, comes down from the north on Airline Road.
Closer to the mic.
Just closer.
Wasn't on. The drainage along North Airline Road goes through the storm drainage system, the catch basins, and flows down to the point where the pipe moves in an easterly direction towards the railroad. At one point, and to digress a bit, in 2008, when I flagged the wetlands on this property, there was an open section of pipe from the drainage off of North Airline Road and a matter of 6-8 feet of gap before it flowed into the railroad culvert that went under the railroad tracks. I did not see in the times that I was on the site at that time water backing up in that area that fed the wetland to the north. It was a localized pond. There was like a plunge pool, if you will, for the discharge of the North Airline Road water before it moved into the railroad drainage system under the railroad track. I did not see any evidence that the water backed up to any substantial amount through the wetland system in 2008 that would have fed the wetland system that we're talking about, the expansion of and the improvement from a functional standpoint. That's my recollection in 2008 of what that system looked like and functioned.
Commissioners, any comments? Ally?
Dave, I was out there and it looks like the town might have got an easement from whoever owns that field to make it accessible to either haying or make it a valuable field, because when the town put that storm sewer down through there, you said they left an open area, in which didn't make sense because it was just going to erode away and just cause havoc through from that point of exposure all the way to the railroad. So I think you're right in what you're saying. I think it's about 10 years since they widened North Airline Road and put all that storm sewers and stuff in it. Maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I remember when they did it.
It may be as simple a situation that the town didn't want to extend the pipe onto the railroad property, because that's right in the area where the property line changes from this property to the railroad property. It may just have been a simple decision, we're not going to extend it into the railroad culvert directly. I don't know. I do know that the wetland system from the north end of the property, Marcus, if you can point where it comes onto the property, moving in a southeasterly direction, makes two 90-degree turns. The first one is to the east, and then it makes another turn to the south. They're both not natural changes in the flow of the wetland that Mother Nature would have done. It was obviously a change, man-made change. When I flagged the area in 2008, the dark green color that you see on that drawing had the 1,800 square feet of construction debris. It was a mound. It acted as a deflector in that first 90-degree turn to the east, and then 90-degree turn to the south. It actually went around the debris berm that was there.
So that work around the railroad has been in the railroad easement, which they probably had done without permission, because I believe they don't have to ask permission, do they, Mr. Chairman?
Well, that's a private railroad line. I don't think they have federal exemptions on it. It's a private railroad line.
I have I'm just hypothesizing a potential reason why it didn't connect when the pipe was put in and extended through the easement on the private property section of it, that's all.
The way you've proposed to segregate this now from the, I hate to use the word bad water to good water, what's the elevation difference? I'm not quite sure I understand that. You're going 2 or 3 feet up? You're going to retain your parking area?
I'm not sure I follow the question. So, I mean, we're going from 258 at the north end of the parking lot down to 256. So the parking or gravel area is very flat. It's essentially 2 feet.
What's the elevation on the green side?
So we're going to go up. I have a 1 foot berm along the edge, and then it drops off also. So in the area along the berm, it goes up 1 foot, comes back down, and then drops all the way down to 254. So it's about a 4 foot depression, and a very gradual one down to the inlet of the into the inlet of the pipe that we propose, which will then carry it into the stormwater system. And the reason I realigned it and didn't bring it up closer to the property line was to get it more in line with the flow of the actual wetland as it exists, sort of in a north-south direction.
If this is to go further, I'd like to see some type of maintenance program on that water oil separator you want to put in. There should be, I don't know if the rest of the commission feels the same way, but if that system is going to be in place, you should have some kind of a maintenance program, either yearly or, I mean, that's something that the engineer would have to design. And
There is some information in the engineering report on the maintenance of that, and we certainly can provide the commission with more.
Would the access to that field, because of North Airline Road being so steep, where would the access to that field be for the farmer or the property owner to mow it? Because it didn't look like it was an overgrown field. It looks like it's been groomed in past years.
It has been groomed in past years, and I don't know. I don't know whether that is intended to continue or not. We could ask the applicant if he intends to continue mowing it or to allow it to just return to natural state.
Dave?
I'm sorry. No comment at this time. I'm sorry. No comment at this time.
Debbie?
Since they haven't complied with our request to remove all that fill yet, I don't see how we can discuss any plans.
Fill has been removed. You drove out there, I'm sure, yesterday or today, you saw that, and there's pictures that show that it's been removed. The only fill that hasn't been removed is where the pipe was open before, which is what Commissioner Kern's been talking about. That's that location. That's the only location.
Dennis, you got a 2 foot elevation change there on the stuff you spread the straw on.
There used to be about an 8 foot elevation change there from that mountain of
Well, you're heading in the
debris.
right direction, but you got a few more feet to go.
Based on what? What elevation
Why
are you
would
basing it on? It was filled before we went down to where we got to natural soil.
Why would you have this 2-foot berm to keep the water back? Why isn't it a gradual from the shed that's there now down to the previous grade?
I suspect we could take a little more fill out if that's the desire. We intend with, and I believe that the commission, if it would entertain this proposal, we can have this work done very, very quickly to restore this area, and then we will be down, we'll actually be taking more material, it'll be lower than it is in the adjacent actual wetland.
Dave, go ahead.
Now I do have a question, okay, because this plan, I'm trying to get my head wrapped around it. When we look at the property here, okay, and it's just elevation, whatever it may be, what was it before the filling was, what was the elevation of this particular parcel of land before it was filled?
Commissioner, I can probably give you some insight to that. In 2008, let me just...
Well, excuse me, I think it's on your topo map. I think this question is answered on your topo map.
Okay.
I think you're down in the 256 category.
Right.
Where did I see the line? 256, 257. And it looks like they're going to give us 254 in their plan. I don't know what their elevation at their inlet at where the
My question, just so I get my mind separate, centered. What was it before there was any fill? Was this, and what is it now?
Okay, Commissioner, if I can answer that specifically. David Lord for the applicant. The site was filled at the time I looked at the site in 2008. It had already been filled. It already changed the flow of the wetland that I delineated coming down here, taking the 90-degree bend to the east and then the 90-degree bend to the south. This area, and it's shown on this drawing in shaded color, that's the construction debris that was there in 2008. The area between my wetland flags and the debris pile was elevated at that point in time. That's why the wetland changed along here, didn't extend all the way to the debris pile, because this area was also filled, likely at the time this redirection of surface flow was done. So there's an area here that was filled at the time I looked at it in 2008.
Then that's what the elevation was. Now, what is the elevation of the property today?
What's the elevation of the...
This?
Now?
Of this, because
Right now,
we're claiming that we did this remediation. So my very simple question is, what was it before and what is it now? So you've answered the before portion, and what is it now?
The elevation
Of this
of that area
parcel of land.
is about 257.
Yeah. And what is it, I'm sorry,
It's about 257, so with our proposed plan, some of that area is at the grade that we propose it to be,
Okay.
and then there is a small area that we propose to grade down further.
okay, so you're saying 257 now, and you're saying it was 254 before?
No, it'd be prior
No, the
to...
wetland in that area.
This property here, right? Okay.
It was about 6 feet higher than that now, before, because there was a big mound of debris. And that mound was taller than me.
Okay.
I don't think the debris plays into this. I think you get the wetlands without the debris, and that's...
Well, that's back prior to 2008. I mean, how do we know what the elevation was?
Maybe we're getting a little lost
How
on
do
it.
you know what the elevation was with the debris pile?
Because we took topo...
You got topos on your map. Are these just lines, or are they accurate?
The things we topoed are accurate. So the top of the debris pile was about 261, if my memory serves me.
Well, but you've got,
Or more.
You go from Airline Road 261, 258, 257, 256, 255, and you're going to create a 254. All right?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the kind of area of what the elevation of the wetlands is. Now, you're going to come back with your new berm at 257, so there's a 3-foot slope in a relatively short distance, and you're going to be up where the pipe is going underneath, connecting to the railroad at 258. So you're anywhere from 3-4 feet plus difference between the two elevations per your map.
Yes.
And that's what we're proposing to do. We didn't do the fill, though. That's the point that's being lost here. We did the gravel. You told us to remediate our violation. We didn't do the fill. That's what David Lord is telling you, Mr. Chairman.
The fill from 2008 you didn't
That's
put
right.
in.
That's correct.
But there's still fill there that you put in.
It's gravel.
Oh, now it's gravel. It's covered with topsoil and hay on it? Is that what it is?
No, from what was done as a violation. Was the
No,
gravel.
what is done in a violation is still exists out there with topsoil and hay on it. Your pictures show it.
That's the
Beautiful,
remediation.
beautiful picture.
That's the remediation.
But it doesn't match the existing. What is the remediation?
You told us to take out the gravel.
Oh, so it's just the gravel, so this...
That's all that my client put down.
But you installed this, you put this material there.
That's
You didn't
correct.
take this material out.
That's correct. We put that in.
Dennis,
We removed the gravel.
This is getting a little hard for me, all right? The original charge is to take out the gravel. Okay, so what you're saying, well, we took out the gravel, but now I'm confused. Was something else put in where the gravel was?
Soil.
Why? Why?
So this is, again, just, I'm really having trouble with this. So, okay, we took out the gravel, okay, so we take out the gravel fill, and now we put in soil fill.
The amount of fill, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we're talking about is a layer of topsoil where the gravel was taken out.
Not a foot or two is not a layer. You got a foot or two of topsoil in parts of this behind the silt fence. The elevation changed between the silt fence.
Okay, I don't have any personal knowledge of.
You made a beautiful, with the green grass, there's a pond in the green grass, and that's really why you needed to cut that swale over here to get the water out of the pond.
Can we resolve this by going back into the archives and find out what the floor elevation was of the building that was there? I believe that he put fill in there, but that's gonna be the telltale of the whole thing. We go back to the original, what you're calling the debris pile is when they took the building down, all the foundation and the stuff they ripped out, they left there in the pile because they didn't take it away. So that's what everybody's talking about, the debris pile. But if we can go back in the archives and look and see what the floor elevation of the building, I believe that was the Grange, wasn't it, Jim?
It was a feed store.
Feed
It
store?
was a feed store, and then after the feed store, it was Pete Fazina's woodworking shop, and
I know that.
I don't know how many other lives it had.
So can we go back to that elevation? And that was the original elevation that I know from 1960 to 1990 or 8 years ago when Dave went out there. That would be the elevation that we're used to driving by and seeing before the building was taken down. Now, you may have brought some fill in to grade it off and make it level for his operation to work on, but there's no arguing about the elevation if you go back to what the floor elevation was in the Grange or the woodworking shop or whatever it was. That was there for 40 years, I would say, at least 40.
That's the building next to the tracks?
That's the building that's gone.
Yeah, but was next to the tracks?
No, I think it was further away from the tracks. It was. Was it?
The debris pile was there long before I bought this place.
Right.
It's okay to speak, but you need a name and for the record.
David Palumbo, owner of this piece of property that we're dwelling over. Those two buildings that were there, there's another spur that comes right up alongside that two buildings. Those are the buildings I took down. We had
filled in the hole where the foundation was stone and all that foundation. And that debris pile had been there long before I bought it. I bought it in 2011. We had gotten demolition permits from the town and everybody gave us the permits to take the building down. Alls we did is bring gravel in to turn around after we were done with all of the site work there. The fill that was in the back had always been there. That property was high on some spots, low on some spots. There was no work other than what I brought in for gravel. Period. That's it. That's all that was done there.
Well, you connected the pipes.
I'm sorry?
You connected the
Yes, I
pipe.
did connect the pipes.
So you had a little
Yes.
more activity.
Yes, we did. And I'm assuming some of the engineers in the community here think, as we're presenting this plan, is beneficial for the town of Wallingford, not just Dave Palumbo and Benchmark. We want to make this a better site. I have 26 letters from the community around me saying how much we've done and how much they like it, from what it was as a drug-infested parking lot, party zone. So 26 community letters love what we've done and want to continue to make it better, and paying all these people to try to make it better for the town of Wallingford, for our community that I work, pay taxes in. Didn't have a problem raising my taxes over the last few years so far because we've improved it. And we want to make a nice architectural building up in the front, and you'll get more tax dollars out of it. I'm trying to make this board satisfied and do everything you want.
Unfortunately, we don't get paid based on the tax bill, or else we would be doing pretty well.
I'm just...
We're concerned on the whole activity that's taken place here in the wetlands.
And I want to give you exactly what you want, and that's what I'm here to do. And I think my attorney, Mr. Senavia, has been over the last several months, every month, working toward that. I have these guys doing everything that you want to do. I've thrown myself on the sword and made a mistake. That doesn't seem to matter in this board. And I'm kind of offended, quite frankly, because I've spent a ton of money to satisfy the community and this board, and willing to continue to do that. I'm not walking away from the church here. I'm at the altar doing what you want me to do, and we'll continue to do it. And we'll do it in 30 days, 15 days, or 60 days. There's been rumors saying that I'm going to wait 9 years. I don't want to come here for 9 years. I want to satisfy every one of you guys tonight, tomorrow, and the next day. I'm not some dirtbag in plain English that's running from my problems. I made a mistake. I'm here to make it right for you people.
And you waited right to the 11th hour to attack this, and it isn't quite what we wanted.
And maybe it's not. I didn't realize that we had a deadline because everybody wanted a master plan. I didn't want to do this twice. I wanted to do it once for you. So I've already spent money trying to appease you guys to give you the remediation all the way back to the building. And if it's more that has to be done, we're more than willing and able with this team to do that. I want to do it once. I want to fix the problem and give you 1,500 square feet of better wetlands, because it was a no-value wetland. Let's be honest. It was garbage there. If you've been there and you know the property was garbage. Tar cans, debris, paint cans, roofing material. It's not a quality of wetlands. I want to make it better for the community. I want to make it better for this commission, for a model piece of property. So when you see it, you're impressed. That's what I want to do. And that's what these guys are trying to do. Give you everything that you want and anything that you want.
And it probably would have been easier had you come in and not do what you done. And I know you threw yourself on the sword, and you can preach that all you want, but we've been working a year trying to get you to clean this hole out. Clean out what you did. And as far as this master plan, you chose to put the master plan in. We always concentrated on the wetlands.
You guys asked us for a master plan.
No, we didn't ask you for a master plan, but you were jumping around with a oil and water separator over here, and you were jumping over here. And so, well, you're going to do this remediation, but we're going to tear that down and we're going to put a new building up. The right thing was the master plan. It wasn't us demanding a master plan, because the master plan isn't our purview. And right now you got a master plan that sends water away from the wetland that used to go in there.
I don't.
We're trying
I
to
don't-
get this thing back to where it was, as it should be.
So you want North Airline water to dissipate on that property and all the contaminants versus what your engineers
Well-
and these experts are trying to give you?
Well, it functioned whether it had contaminants on it or not. Wetlands
It was a
conclusive.
no value, right, though? Was it not a no value wetland?
It was there. You
I'm not
sealed the
disagreeing,
pipe
it was
up.
there.
We don't like piping wetlands anyway, or watercourses. We like the sunlight to break the contaminants down.
So,
But you piped across, you did these things, and now we're trying to get it straightened out. And you were given a mandate 60 days ago to do it. And I don't know why you don't know you had a mandate, but you had a mandate 60 days ago.
well, I just got the letter, and I can prove it in my office,
Well-
when I got your letter. So maybe we should take it up with Aaron, who
Well-
I can verify when I got the letter in my office.
That said what?
That we had by May 1st, and I just got it on Thursday or Friday of last week. So.
Well, is that true?
Do you have the letter with you? Because this is, and if it was 60 days ago, Mr. Chairman, I'd have done it 60 days ago. Okay? I'm not running from my problem.
I don't believe we were the only ones that you had a deadline.
Were we under an assumption that we had a master plan to get to these folks?
That's what
Not a master plan, not a master plan,
we're not going to debate this.
to get this area cleaned out behind the shed.
425, this is when the letter came in. And I have it in front of me.
elevation of the old building.
Thanks.
This is this plan. Yes, sir.
I got the letter 425.
What date?
425.
Aaron, is
425.
that the first date he was notified that he
I
had
was
to
also
make-
out of town on business and,
No, he
Hang on,
was,
I'm talking now.
okay.
Hang on.
it was the wetland, it was, the first time you did it was March 6th, that meeting, it was May 1st, and a letter went out
The letter went out right after the March meeting.
soon after the March meeting. The attorney wasn't at the March meeting, but I called him right away afterwards to tell him that there was a May 1st deadline. Then at the April 3rd meeting, you said it again, and I brought it up. I said, do you want to change that May 1st deadline to like June 1st or something or whatever? And you said, no, it's May 1st. You reiterated it. The attorney was not at that meeting, but the next day I called him up to tell him because, you know, I knew he only had 20, whatever,
Well,
30 days left to go.
Trust me, Chairman, I would have had this done 2 months, 3 months ago. Maybe I'm at
You
fault
sat
that we were
here-
getting
you
a
sat-
master plan,
you sat here 11 months ago, and we told you that this was all wrong.
and the attorney just went down every month of what has been going on. I have not done anything for 11 months.
Well-
The attorney has been in contact every month with you guys.
Okay.
Alls I'm trying to
We're
find
going around and round and round here, and we could fight this out, but I want to go home tonight sometime.
There's
So let's.
nothing to fight out, I'm trying to give you what you want.
Stop, please. Why don't you continue on with your presentation? You have Mr. Lord here, and I know his time is valuable.
Thank you. David, why don't you explain the plan that you passed it out or submitted it? Here we go. Mr. Chairman, we've submitted previous site regrading and remediation plans. I think I identified those to you. This is an updated version based upon the master plan that's been submitted as part of our application. You'll notice the revision date on the cover, and David will explain the changes from
Thanks.
that which he explained twice before.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff, I'm David Ward, professional soil scientist.
Microphone closer.
Professional soil scientist and environmental consultant, soil resource consultant. I have an office in Northern Connecticut.
Hang on a minute. Is the mic on? Try it again, Dave.
It was off. Okay. Again, for the record, David Lord, soil scientist and environmental consultant, soil resource consultants with an office in Meriden, Connecticut. What I just passed out to the commission is a document April 29th, or dated April 29th, 19. It's a further modification to previous plans which I've submitted to the commission. It retains the same format. The numbers have changed slightly because we've increased the amount of restoration, wetland creation, and most importantly or most significantly, the increase in the amount of upland review zone, which we are proposing to restore to somewhat of a previous condition. And I'm saying somewhat of a previous condition because that's the area where the infamous debris pile was previously. I'll just take you through very quickly the numbers that I'm talking about that are modified are on the first page of the document. The amount of wetland that was impacted has not changed. That's 522 square feet of wetland and intermittent watercourse, which was filled on the property. We are proposing the same amount of restoration of wetland impact, which is 175 square feet of wetland area. That's in this general area here on the site.
Excuse me, Dave.
Sure.
Flip the previous page back. I think that, can that map work for you?
Sure, that works fine. This area here is the area that the remediation of restoration of previous wetlands is proposed. That was the same as previous, which reduces the amount of proposed wetland impact that is proposed to remain down to 347 square feet, which is in this general area here, connecting previously into the railroad property drainage system. We are, at this point, proposing to restore 3,800 square feet of upland review area, which is the dark green shaded area here, to a higher functioning character than what was previously in existence, both in 2008 and previous when it had gravel surface put on it. So we are significantly improving that area of upland review zone with plantings, with seedings, and the establishment of a vegetative barrier between the proposed work area and the upland review area to the wetland. We have increased the amount of wetland creation that we are proposing. That area is shown in the lighter shade of green. We had a small area here, somewhat smaller in size with previous iterations of the plan. We now are proposing to create 1,260 square feet of new wetland directly connected to the existing wetland in this portion of the site. That's a mitigation or compensation ratio of approximately 3.7 to 1, meaning for every square foot of wetland that is to retain the fill on it, we are proposing 3.5 or 3.7 square feet of new wetland of a much higher functioning value to the character and functioning of the wetland system in its previous condition. At this point, I've already hit on some of the history, but I'll give you a little more. Down in this general area here, the wetland transitioned from a vegetated, open field, meadow type wetland system. When it made the first turn, it became basically a non-vegetated bottom area. There was a lot of blackened soil surface coatings on the bottom of the wetland, and that extended all the way down to the point where it moved into the railroad cross culvert underneath the railroad tracks. That is the basis for the opinion that I've rendered in the report and talked about previously, that that portion of the wetland was of relatively low functioning value, functioning character. It conveyed excess surface water runoff coming down through the wetland and wrapping around the uplands. It had very limited wildlife benefit. There were some pools and other depressions in there that had water, but there was no vegetation to speak of inside the limits of this wetland area. Well, we're proposing, and we'll talk about in just a minute, much higher functioning value. We're going to be putting in wildlife beneficial trees, shrubs, ground cover vegetation, providing a lot of increased and enhanced wildlife habitat functioning in addition to the continued maintenance or conveyance of stormwater runoff. There are some photographs at the end of the restoration plan which give you a view of the character of the wetland. Most of them look in a northerly or northwesterly direction. If you look at a couple of them, it's very difficult to tell where the wetland is versus the upland versus the wetland in this area because it's just a slight swale area. Hydrology within the proposed wetland area has been set at an elevation approximately 255. That is the wetland surface elevation in this area, which was not altered. Oops. I don't usually have that trouble with the microphone. That was the elevation existing here on the outside or the inside of the wetland, and that's the elevation we're holding. We are creating a small pool area here at the invert of the proposed pipe that's going to be at 255, but 254 appears to be based on soil borings that I've conducted in that area, the water table, persistent water table elevation. This area will be fed, and the new wetland area will be fed by both localized surface water runoff, conveyance through the wetland system, and the underlying groundwater table conditions. In general, from a water quality standpoint, the discharge of untreated water is not preferable to the discharge of treated water. This type of structure is going to cleanse the water as it's coming off of this site. The discharge of water from the drainage system on North Airline Road into the wetland is not an environmentally beneficial type function. It's not something that we would propose without doing some type of catchment, treatment, pre-treatment, a structure, a man-made structure or a vegetated zone where you could have Mother Nature helping with the cleansing of the storm water. It's not just not something that we would normally recommend handling the stormwater on the site. On page 2, there's those numbers that I've just mentioned. Approximately 900, a little over 900 square feet of new wetland on the site, and the compensation ratio of 3.7 to 1. On page 3, there's a construction sequence. For the sake of brevity, I won't go into that step by step. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Page 4 begins the revegetation effort within the existing wetland, the restored wetland, the wetland creation area, and the upland review zone area that we are proposing to restore. We have 3 planting areas. The first is the wetland area and the new wetland area, and lastly the upland review area, both to the south of the wetland and a small zone along the outside edge of the wetland creation area will all receive trees, shrubs, and beneficial low maintenance to no maintenance ground cover vegetation. There are plant material specifications by planting area, numbers, size, and species types that will be used. Continues on to page 5. There's spacing, permanent vegetative stabilization recommendations. These are right out of the Erosion and Sediment Control Handbook. Temporary vegetative stabilization measures, again right out of the Erosion Control Handbook. There's 2 special types of seed mixtures that will be done in addition to the permanent vegetative stabilization. They are for the new wetland and the other portions of the wetland adjacent to where we are proposing the restoration creation activities. This is a mixture that I've used to very good success on restoration projects where we've taken off an overburden over a filled wetland, or we've created a new wetland surface. It is a seed mixture that tolerates a wide range from frequent inundations to actual dry out and droughty conditions. There's a nice mixture of plant species in there. There is a separate species composition seed mix, the New England Conservation Wildlife mix. Again, it's basically a no-mow mix that will be put into the upland review area, drier soil conditions. It's a no-mow mix, wildlife beneficial species that will provide ground cover stabilization, and this area will have the trees and shrubs put on it also. There's fertilizer, mulching specifications, and then lastly, a maintenance and monitoring program. Upon the completion of all the revegetation work proposed in the plan, there will be post-completion inspections that will be done by myself on a schedule of 15 days, 30 days, 6 months, and annually out for the next 3 years after the completion of the plantings. The commission will receive a written report along with photographs documenting the generation of the plant communities that we are talking about. There's a threshold of 80% survival effective in the plan. It means 8 out of 10 plants that we put in have to survive, or replantings to get us above that threshold will need to be made. That will all be documented in the annual plan that the commission will receive. Again, to warrant to the commission that what we are proposing to put in here and revegetate in this area allows and is allowed to establish and create the types of habitat conditions that we are proposing to do. Again, just in summary, the wetland in this portion of the site continues to flow to the south. It will continue to make a slightly wider, gentler curve in this area and enter into the pipe that will connect under the railroad track and discharge to the east side of the railroad track system. This area will be much higher functioning value because of the species composition. This area will develop into a woody shrub swamp area and a woody shrub upland review zone after the full implementation of the plan. With that, there's some other specifications and design elements that you can read about later in the report past my signature, but that's what I have to present at this time. It's our best attempt to mitigate, compensate for the small amount of 375 square feet of wetland impact that is right in this area of the site, restore to a closer configuration to what it was after the debris pile was removed in 2008. Because again, there was a zone of basically flat, higher elevation off of the wetland in the area of flags. Flags 8 through 10. There was a step up from the wetland in this area to the upland review zone outside of the wetland before you actually got to the pile of construction debris. There was a surface there that was at a higher elevation than the wetland, because it's the only way that the wetland would have made this kind of a turn was there was a higher elevation that deflected the water through that system. So that's the quick overview of the plan. I'll be happy to try to answer questions that the commission may have.
I have one. You are creating a new elevation with the pink line.
Yes.
And the distance between the pink line and the wetland is 43 feet. Is that correct?
At this point here, it's much greater.
But at that point, it's 43 feet.
Yes.
And the elevation difference, if you're adding 3 feet, you're going to have a 6-foot drop, 5 to 6 foot drop from that point in 43 feet or less.
You're going from elevation to, the highest elevation I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus, is 259, and we're going down to 255. That's 4 feet.
But you're doing it, you're adding fill back into the upland review area.
But we're bringing the grade down.
But you got this high elevation here.
This elevation is set, it's in existence today.
Oh, no, not where the pink line is, I don't believe. Your elevation stops behind the building. You're at 256, and you're gonna bring it up to 259 right there.
Yes.
So you're gonna
We're gonna create a very sharp berm that.
You're gonna have a retaining wall or something there. You're gonna bring up 3 feet in a.
No, we're essentially creating a berm, a 1 foot high by 4 foot wide berm. It goes up to 2 to 1, it goes down 2 to 1, and it's essentially just to deflect water away. We're gonna put a row of planting with arborvitaes along the base of it.
So the parking lot, what's the elevation of the parking lot?
In that very corner, it is 258. In the front corner near the building, it is 257.
And then on the other side of the berm, it's 256.
The berm goes up and then goes down from 250.
Why don't we have 50 feet of upland review area there instead of 43?
Right at that one spot, for the turning movement of the vehicles that the applicant wishes to use there. I have a plan. So the way that
I think you got a pretty rapid decrease in slope on that area.
I would call that a very gentle slope. On the north side of that berm, the elevation we propose is 258. It goes down to 255, which is 3 feet in 43 feet. That is not a steep slope. That is a fairly gentle slope. The reason for the shape of this, this curve and whatnot was to be able to turn a truck around and not hit any cars that are parked in the parking area, and to allow for a more gentle slope for the swale at the other side of the berm.
Commissioners, got any other questions at the moment? Nick?
The only one I ask is the snow shelf going to be the wetlands, the created wetlands you're going to build? Where are you going to put your snow? I know you need a big area for your trucks to come in and back in. Where was your plan for the snow shelf?
I would, where the...
Microphone?
This north area here.
Yeah, I would put it where the proposed building would be, into that bank.
In the corner.
That's the only safe place to put it, or remove it.
Ally?
Overall, I like the plan. I have realized there may be some issues with the amount of wetland or the amount of upland review area, like you said. But I think that there's been a lot of abuse to this wetland over the past however many owners, a lot more than this one and the last one and the one before. So I think that overall, the planting plan and the restoration plan are nice.
Dave?
He's laid out a lot of improvements to the plan. I mean, he has laid out a lot of, if you take him at his word, right, that what he's going to have now is better than what we have now, than just simply putting it back.
Debbie?
No comment.
I'd like to have a site investigation out there if the commission wishes, especially now that we got daylight a little later in the day.
Sounds like a plan.
Is any, I'm hesitating only because Aaron had a request for another site investigation, and maybe we can do them both at once. We haven't got to that application yet on Technology Drive.
Okay.
All right? Do you agree with me
Yes,
that you wanted a site investigation?
Yes, I do have some questions for David Lord, but yes.
Yeah, all right, so we'll get to you in just a minute. So, I don't know what day we want to pick. Anybody got preferences?
We talking a weekday or Saturday?
No, I think you're gonna do a weekday, like 5 o'clock, something like that. Does that work, 5 o'clock for everybody?
Yeah, next Wednesday?
What day? I think I'm out. 10th is a Friday. I'm out on Friday, but I think the rest is pretty clear. I think we should do it sooner than later on this.
Okay, Friday's good for me.
Friday's not good for me that day.
Okay, Friday's not good for you.
The 10th is.
Monday and Tuesday are not good for me. So I have Thursday, Friday, Wednesday,
You want to
next
do,
Thursday.
you got a preference, Nick?
Anything but the 18th.
How about next Wednesday, whatever date that is?
Wednesday's tough for me, because
How about
Wednesday's tough.
Thursday?
Thursday's good. Any
Let's leave it-
Thursday's
Let's
good.
leave it Thursday.
Okay,
What's that, the 9th?
I hate Thursday, but we gotta do it.
Well, all I can tell you, I'm sure a lot of us have calendars at another
know.
location
I know,
to say. So
but the thing is,
you'll bear with us on what date we pick?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
we'll be-
when we come up with a date, you'll get notified.
Oh.
Even if I gotta call you myself.
I will wait with open arms, and I will assure you that whatever you want us to do,
Okay.
we will do for you,
Aaron?
to satisfy the commission.
Right, so the commission's going to vote to set a special meeting, site investigation at this property. It's either going to be May 8th, Wednesday, May 8th at 5,
No, it looks like it's gonna be Thursday.
or Thursday. So
It's
you're
gonna be May
voting on
9th,
Thursday, May 9th at 5.
May 9th looks more promising than the
Okay.
8th.
So could you vote to do that? Yeah.
That's gotta be in the form of a motion?
Is that weather permitting, Mr. Chairman?
What?
No, I want it raining like a son of a gun.
bet.
I want to get the benefit of how this wetland functions.
Or bring umbrellas, Mr. Chairman?
How many?
No, that wouldn't work. That would detract from the natural
John's trying to get.
ambience here. We need a motion on that?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that on application A-19-3.7988 East Center Street, that the commission convene a special meeting on the premises at 5 PM on Thursday, May 9th, 2019.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The only thing, we'll keep you informed. There may be modification to the time, only if we're trying to do two at once, the two that week.
Yeah.
We can see as we go on.
We have other commissioners who aren't here too that might weigh in.
That's an issue.
This isn't a public hearing, but we're not against people from the public commenting. Is there any comments from the public?
Good evening. My name is John Letourneau, 3 Regent Court, Wallingford. I heard a lot of discussion tonight about grades on this property. And I just wanted to bring another perspective to you people. I'm very familiar with this property, and usually I don't get involved with wetlands or any of that, but because I have some background knowledge with this, I feel maybe it could help. I had looked at this property to purchase 20, 25 years ago, someplace in there, when Pete Frazina had it. And I was going to move my store up there. He wanted me to buy it, and he said, great place to put a lamp store. So I went up and looked at it, and it was in pretty tough shape. But I walked every square inch of that property. And just to let you know, I dug into a lot of history of that property. And that property hasn't been the same since 1850. When the
Excuse me, since when?
1850. When the railroad came through, they changed everything. And subsequent to that, different owners have changed it. That field up in the back, that grass area that kind of swales down to the end of this property, that's all man-made. That was all man-made. And I asked Pete Frazina about it, and he had some pretty good knowledge. When he bought the property, and he said he always wanted to put houses up there. And he had gone to the town and they told him that, no, they did some perk tests and really couldn't put any houses up there. You could maybe get one. But at some point, a farmer had dug out there, that swale that's in there, he had dug that out and taken some soil out of that. And there, he wasn't sure, he thought it was the farmer across the street. But while Pete had that, and I was just amazed what these guys did to that piece of property. When I went up there, I didn't know, this is the first time I've seen this fellow. We talked on the phone, but I was amazed at what they did because I knew what was there. So that parcel, when you go to the back of the I'm going to call it the parking lot now, behind the building, where this gravel area meets the grass area, I think that's where you're talking about what the wetlands is, okay? You know what was there? What was there today was not there when Pete Frazina owned it. The old steps, the old granite steps from the post office were there on that spot.
Pete dumped them there.
He dumped them there. And then the railroad dumped before there, they dumped rail over there. There was a pile of rail back there. And that debris area that they were into, I said to Pete, what's this? He says, that's way before me. He says, that's way before me. He says, the railroad, that was the railroad, and whoever owned it, the grain store before him, used to dump all their boxes and all their junk out there. When Pete, before he passed away, he had all the rail removed as much as he could. They sold it for scrap. Some guy came in and bought it for scrap because it was there, and it was also, when you pull into the property, there's a retaining wall there now, but above that retaining wall, there was probably, if I had to estimate, 4 tractor-trailer loads of rail up in there. And so there was a lot of valuable scrap, and somebody said to Pete, you ought to scrap it, it's worth money. So he did. Somebody else came and took the stairs out, the remnants of the stairs. They were big, big blocks. They were probably 8 foot long by 12 by 12, the front stairs to the post office. And some of the other granite work that was in the building was there. So he took that out. So Pete actually created that divot that's in there that's being called the wetlands. I have a hard time. If it's natural wetlands, yeah, if it's natural wetlands. But here, these guys came, they took an eyesore out of Wallingford, and that was an eyesore. They had broken buildings and the junk that was on that property was amazing. I stayed away from it because I was afraid what was there. And I didn't want to do any remediation up there. But what they're doing, was there a mistake made? Technically, yeah, there was a mistake made. And they admit it. But the mistake was made on a man-made wetlands. This is one that God didn't make, and we can argue about it from now till never, but I'll stand pat with that, okay, because I know what was there, and I could argue for these fellows very adamantly about it. The mistake was made. They're coming and saying, okay, we're sorry. We're gonna give you this plan. We're gonna do this. And now we're talking about elevations. It's going to be 2 foot. It's going to be 1.5 feet. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. All this is the next generation of that land, of the man-made on that land. They're not draining a swamp. They're not doing, they're just going to make it better. And I have such a hard time with this, sitting here listening to this. I have such a hard time when every day I go by the West Dayton Hill Dam, when 2 roads were cut in and trees were cut down and everything else that they did over there. It's okay. It's okay. because it's a state project. Different rules, different rules. It's okay. That's a wetlands, but it's okay. They drained the pond at West Dayton Hill. They drained the pond. It's okay. Different rules. Here, these poor guys are in front of you. They've got a soil expert, an engineer. They've got planners. They've got everything here. And it's going to get kicked down the road because you got to go take a look at it. My God, it's in front of you. It's in front of you, Jimmy. I'm sorry, it's in front of you. This should be, okay, let's move on. Let's make this good and move on. That's my opinion. For what it's worth, thank you for the time. I hope them well. This is the type of business and the type of happening we want in Wallingford. This business is good. It's good for Wallingford. And it's good for that area. What he did to that piece of property is just amazing. I went by it, I drove in. I had no business driving it, it's not my property. But I couldn't help it because I knew the property and I wanted to see what went on. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, John.
For the kind words, sir.
Okay, so this is tabled until,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask some questions of David Lord and company?
well, not, I don't want a long presentation. I mean, that's what your office is for.
Okay, well, I guess first a question for you. Moving forward, are they to continue with the order to remove the fill in the wetland?
Well,
Or is everything stopped, or what are we doing here?
I think because they say they did, we say they didn't, the only way this is going to get resolved is at the site investigation.
Okay,
That will be determined at the site investigation. So everybody's on the same page of what we're looking for.
okay, so they're to just stop any activity back there, not put more stuff down, not take more stuff out?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then as I noticed Dave Lord's report doesn't have a drawing of planting area A, B, and C with all the plant species. Do you have, I mean, am I missing a page or did it? is
No,
it not
there
drawn?
wasn't a drawing that specifically showed planting areas A, B, and C.
It doesn't,
You
does
can
that
add
one?
that if you'd like.
Does
They're
that one-
described in narrative form in the planting areas section of the report. But
Okay,
they're not specifically shown on a drawing.
all right, if, the day that, ultimately, if this planting plan is approved, I'd like a drawing that shows that. But I just have one comment about the 25 arborvitaes in the upland review area. I would prefer natural plantings and not arborvitaes. That's a minor thing. If you look on the photographs, there's this old oak. It was never that close. Its roots were never inundated before. Back in the day, you know, when I first saw this property in 2005 and then 2008.
We'll discuss it at a site investigation.
All right, but I wanted to make the applicant aware that I'm concerned about the inundation around the oak.
Well, they corrected that because they drained it. They cut the swale through there and they're drained it.
Well, there's still fill around the roots of the oak, and that gets me to my second question. I noticed that they didn't remove any gravel from the Tilcon property. And two questions to that. I don't understand with the new Godfrey plan, how that if there's a drop in grade where their property meets the Tilcon property, or is it going to be level, or does it drop off? That was one question. And then the other question is, I was told that they had no intention of removing the fill from the Tilcon property because they felt they didn't have to, because they felt there was no jurisdiction. And I met with a law department. She's our corporation counsel is going to look at that, whether or not it's not clear if they needed a federal permit to fill that upland review area and wetlands on that property, or if they did in fact need a local permit. But that gravel still remains. I wanted the commission to know that the gravel placed recently, I mean, there was always gravel, different places next to the railroad, of course, but the recently placed gravel within the last 2 years or so, whatever, that's an issue that when we go out there, we should look at that. But maybe the engineer can answer about the drop off. or if
Well,
there is going to be a drop-off.
If you've got those issues, send them a note specifically to those questions.
Before the, well, I don't know if I can do it before the,
Okay?
would you like me to do it before the site investigation?
No. So then,
Okay.
So they, because some of those questions will be talked about at the site
Oh.
investigation.
Okay, but something just jumped into my mind, Mr. Chairman. At a special meeting, you're only allowed to conduct the business that's so stated in the notice of that special meeting. So, just so you know that you've asked, tonight we just talked about, you've asked them to stop more activity back there, whether it's adding or subtracting material. You've asked them to stop until the special meeting. At the special meeting, you can't ask them to continue. You have to wait till the June 5th meeting to ask them to stop or continue or whatever.
So if I say to them, we're going to have a meeting, we're going to tell you what you're going to do, and you're going to have it done by the June meeting, I can say that here, today.
Yes.
I can make reference to say what is discussed at the special meeting is going to be your directive to have done by the June meeting.
The problem with special meetings, they're in the field. There's no tape recorder, there's no audience, there's no, documentation.
I thought with a special meeting, the public is invited.
They are open to the public, but there's no recording of what conversations and give and take. So I've been directed always by the law department, you can't, it's just to observe, it's to look at stuff. So I don't know how that can be handled.
We'll see how. Maybe they'll be taking us to court.
I'm going to bring the dog.
Okay.
Okay.
She loves site investigation.
I guess we're tabled to May 9th?
9th.
All right.
Two quick things, Mr. Chairman. Does that address your agenda item H1
Yes.
also?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
You've got an hour and a half of our time. That's pretty generous for us these days.
It's terrific. I appreciate it. I do. I really do. And the other, just quickly, my client and I have no problem with a direction from the commission indicating that whatever is determined to be required to be done at that site walk, we'd be happy to do it between that meeting and the June 6th wetlands meeting. We have no problem completing it, irrespective of whatever advice you've received. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you. All right. Let's see where. Okay, 79 Brentwood, application A 19 3.8, 79 Brentwood Drive retaining wall. Any issues, Aaron?
No, I believe that the applicant / contractor is here tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Chris Bissett, I'm the contractor for Brentwood Village Condominiums, and Bissett, shares B as in boy, E-S-S-E-T-T-E.
You know, the interesting thing on this Brentwood application, long before your time, probably we were fresh, new wetland commission in the 88 and the 90 category. That pond was not a wet pond. This is a wet pond now, right?
Correct, it is.
It was never a wet pond. It wasn't designed as a wet pond. The residents filled the drain in the bottom, the pipe in the bottom, so they could have a wet pond. DEP got involved, and we tried to get them to pull unplug the pipe, but it didn't. I don't think it happened. I wasn't a seasoned veteran of wetlands as I am now.
We found some old plans and old prints of the property.
You found them?
Yeah, and it doesn't exist. And
The wet pond does not exist.
And now it's a pond.
It's a pond.
Well, there's water there.
And the interesting thing, although you hear comments regarding they drained the pond tonight, the pond is a valuable commodity, but it's not a wetland. The wetland quality of a pond is around the perimeter where the life and the vegetation meet the water. So it gets to be kind of interesting. But anyway, Aaron, you have any comments? I mean, this is a pretty straightforward necessity of retaining wall. I'm sure it's going to be some fun. If you can find the outlet, unplug it, will you please?
If I happen to come across it, I'll just...
You're a scuba diver, you can search it. She's got 4 conditions of approval. Have you looked at them?
I
And
have.
you agree with them?
I do.
You have any other comments?
There was some discussion after I wrote this, that I had a conversation with Mr. Bissett. There was some discussion about a fence on the top. And I suggest, meaning on top of the wall. Today, there's a rickety, old lattice fence, whatever, that's obviously going to get thrown out. So I suggested, look, you know, propose a fence on the top for safety, for people walking along. It's a very narrow path. But fold it into your application, because you don't want to come back 2 years, whatever. You fold it in now. This is your chance to get something, activity permitted within 50, right at the water's edge. I was going to say within 50 feet. It's literally
Right.
at the water. So what did you think of that?
So, yes, after we had our conversation on Friday night, I did reach out to my client, and their association held a meeting, and they're in complete agreement with that. They do want to see a railing put back up in that area for safety purposes. They've got no issue with that. It was not part of their original request for bid, but it's going to be added. They're willing to add it, you know, ad hoc tonight for approval and make it on the record.
Without going through your plan, what's your new wall constructed of?
It's going to be 6 by 6 timbers, pressure treated identical to what's there.
All right. How do you want to handle the addition of this fence on the top, Aaron?
As a condition, one of the conditions of approval.
Is?
So application to be, permit will include, and he'll give us the dimension, railing to be installed at the top of the retaining wall of X material. What kind of material are we talking about?
It's 50 linear.
Include, what's it going to be, a rail fence?
It's going to be 50 linear feet, and I believe they're going with chain link, galvanized chain link, hot tipped.
Chain link fence on retaining wall. Yes. Well, at this time, I'll entertain a motion regarding significant activity.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, application A19-3.8, 79 Brentwood Drive be deemed to be not a significant activity.
Second?
Second.
Motion made. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Ally? Nick?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Yes. This time I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny this application.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, application A19-3.8, 79 Brentwood Drive be approved, subject to the conditions set forth in a letter from Environmental Planners Report dated April 26, 2009, and also with a new condition of approval that the permit will include a chain link fence on the retaining wall.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Not. I'll call for a vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Ally?
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
thank you.
Okay. Now I lost my agenda somewhere. Can I have mine back?
Is that yours?
No one over there.
Somebody stole mine.
Not a problem.
Out of curiosity, we actually get, will they actually get permits sent out, or we can just proceed based on tonight's meeting?
No, you get a notice of decision letter, which is your permit. It goes out in.
Okay, we're going on to application 819 4.13 Technology Drive. Okay. Aaron, 3 Technology Drive. This got tabled, and this is being tabled by request?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was
Okay.
still on that one. Yes, it
This is being, there's a lot of unanswered questions.
is being tabled, the wetlands are they were flagged this
That's
week.
fine, we're fine, we'll go on to that.
Okay.
Okay, under new business.
Did you want to do a site walk on that one, or not?
I'm glad you say that. Now, you want to try for the same day? I mean, we got, if we're 5 o'clock on East Center Street, we shouldn't be more than an hour there, I would think.
Yeah,
So we should be able to do that the same day? That would, okay with the commissions?
That's good for me.
okay, so
That's May 9th,
you vote to set a special meeting.
special meeting. We're going to hold a special meeting on May 9th, approximately 6 o'clock, on 3 Technology Drive.
Need a motion on that?
What's that? Yes.
Yes.
Well, could you add to that after the first,
Yeah.
following the first one?
Following the East Center Street Act.
Okay,
Is that a motion?
I think we can do that. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the commission hold a special meeting regarding application A19-4.1 3 Technology Drive on Thursday at 6 o'clock on Thursday, May 9th, 2019, following the special meeting previously approved for application A19.3.7988 East Center Street, which will be at 5 p.m.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on, receipt of new business, A19 4.2, 155 John Street, Town of Wallingford Sewer Division, water pollution. Anything going on there, Aaron? Just exception of the application?
Came in 2 days ago, haven't really looked at it, but
Okay.
I did sit down with them about a month ago.
That's all right, we'll go
Yeah.
through it. Application A19 4.3, 153 Chimney Hill Road, Lauren Young. That came in today also?
Yes, Roman Rosinski, Southwest Conservation District, went out there, he wrote a report. She wants to do a lot of changes in her backyard, which is wet, which is a wet backyard.
So, okay.
It's a complicated application, and there's several options, alternatives to kick around.
Well, hopefully you'll get them all resolved in the next 30 days.
Yeah.
And hand us a nice, simple application. Okay, reports and communications, I only bring this up because I think did we all get a notice from Janice in the law department about June 6th?
Yes.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's right.
So that's going to be here in this auditorium, June 6th,
Right.
I believe, right? Going to be here in this auditorium, June 6th?
Yes, that's what it says, yes.
Council chambers, right. Okay, going into violations, and it's getting to the point we got more violations than we got applications. I don't know if that's good or bad. Number 1 has been taken care of. That's had enough discussion for tonight, I think. Notice 2 is application A 16.2.1, 530 Church Street, Joe Maneri. Aaron has been handling that. She's had questions or comments from the property owners. Where do we stand on that, Aaron?
So I met with the law department because I was directed to meet.
Well, first, what's the problem? Let's start with the problem.
Okay, the issue is the storm basin was supposed to be finished 2 years ago. Then it just wasn't the first year. Second year, it again wasn't, but due to rain, a lot of rain, couldn't get in there. So now it's the third year. I mean, we're really late on getting that storm basin finished. It's working, don't get me wrong, it works, but the whole south side is all raw and gullies, and the whole thing will have to be scooped out, and they were required to put certain wetland plantings in the bottom, so after they scoop it out and restore its capacity, they'll have to put some plantings in the bottom. So that's a bit of work. Of course, for the last, 2 years, it's been owned by a private property owner. It's not the developer, he doesn't own it anymore. So there's a little problem with that. I mean, it's not the best situation. And there's several other property owners. Maybe you recall, we put out a notice of violation, and the developer, Joe Manieri, and several of the lot owners came to the December 5th meeting, and he was directed to have everything done by June 15th, because everyone knew in the spring it'd be too wet to go ahead and do the basin. He was given a lot of directives. Some of them he did in the winter, but now it's the spring. I've gotten several calls from some of these several lot owners saying, could you please make him put in the grass so I can have nice grass? It never took. He put it in November, it didn't take, whatever, and now it's, muddy. So that's part of it. The other part is the basin part. And so he has, by the commission's decree, till June 15th to wrap this all up. So of course, people are getting nervous. So I conferred with the law department, and she indicated that one thing that could be done, it's too early to pull the bond, but you might be looking at giving a deadline that could be accommodated before the June. In other words, by the June 5th meeting, we have to take some action if there's no there's no satisfaction by then, by June 5th at the next meeting.
Why are we involved in the lawns? They're in the wetlands?
Why are we involved?
Yeah, you just brought up the lawns. The lawns are eroding away or whatever.
Oh,
why are we
yes.
involved in that?
Okay, because they're bleeding into the wetlands. The swale, they're bleeding directly into the drainage swale, which goes directly into the basin. That's why.
Well, I would talk to Janet about if we could send him a letter just implying that his bond's looking very tempting to repair the damages that are going into the wetlands. You give him a 30-day restoration time, and if it's not done, we're going to pull the bond. That's all. I would talk to Janet about it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He's had plenty of time to do these things that should have been done. And if he's working with you and he's stabilizing the lawn so that the erosion's not going into the wetlands, that's different. But if they're eroding and then heading to the wetlands and he's not addressing them, then it's the same thing as walking away from the project. So maybe a little warning letter saying that we want action now, not later. No? Tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay, are you thinking staff would write the letter, or are you saying that you're going to vote on something, or I'm just going to write this letter as a matter of course, because due to his past history?
You're a staff person. You're the ones out there looking at this stuff. If he's not addressing these issues that have been addressed, then it's the same thing as walking away from him. Yes or no?
Yes, I think he needs, I do call, just so you know, I call every 2 weeks. I call and let him know and ask him.
And what's he say?
He says various things.
Well, I think Nick is correct. Instead of a phone call, just shout him a note.
Sounds good.
Okay, going on to 52 Hanover Street. I think there was, Roman has worked on it, and she's got a letter to Mr. Vitale. So they seem to be working on that issue. Okay, number 4, 12 Old Colony Road, Old North Colony Road. It's
yes.
a wetland problem. It's a stockpile, and their stockpiles are getting a little out of control. So, gentleman's here tonight. Aaron, what can fill us in? She spent some time with them.
Yes. Excuse me. Actually, I was there this afternoon with Bill Hoynak, who's here tonight representing the owners. But backing up, and I'm having trouble finding my file at the moment, but I don't think I need my file. A notice of violation went out. Let's back up. Okay, so what brought it to the attention, the Department of Transportation, CONDOT, had issued down by where South Broad meets Old Colony, some drainage stuff going on with some sediment, et cetera. I don't want to dwell on that, but that's what got the planning department involved, and then I got involved, and we went out to the site. So this site was approved for what's called a temporary fill. They were going to build a pad, they were going to fill an area for a development pad, and that never happened. Instead, you know, the economy wasn't doing so great, so instead what they did is they used it for a stockpiling yard. So now zoning is looking at that because that's not the permitted use, but my issue is with the wetland jurisdiction, because turned out there's special permit for a fill pad. Never got a wetland permit. The reason it didn't get a wetland permit is they had an attorney, and the attorney maintained that there was no activity in our jurisdiction. So they never got a fill pad. Now, if the basin doesn't discharge, you know, typically your basin does discharge into the wetlands. In this case, their basin pretty much holds it, and it goes down. It doesn't have a discharge pipe. I mean, it wasn't designed with a discharge pipe, and today it doesn't have a discharge pipe. Okay, so I go out there, and the violations there were many, but the one that the most egregious was this, where the erosion from the stockyard channeled and carved down the slope into a stream below. It carved a gully, oh gosh, I guess 3 or 4 feet deep, going all the way down the slope. This is a steep slope. It's a little confusing because 12 Old Colonies has an upper part and has a lower part. So it carved down the slope to the lower part of 12 Old Colony. Then down here you have their second piece of property they own, which is called 1120 South Broad Street, also down below. So the major violation on this site is the sediment that's been deposited in that stream. And there's sediment, I mean, there's pure sand from some of these sand stockpiles, and then there's more gravelly material, and then there's dirt from the slope, you know, brown dirt just carved out of the slope, and then there's chunks of asphalt pieces, because years ago that property had some fill with asphalt mixed in it. Oh, and Commissioner Kern went out the second time with me. The week later, he went out after the first visit. He was kind enough to meet me out there, and he had some recommendations for how they could approach this. How they could approach two things: stopping that water from sailing off over the slope, number one, and number two, later, how would they patch up that slope, and how would they get the deposited material out of the stream? What they have done to date is they've redirected that water. It's no longer going over the slope. Obviously, water that comes from the sky comes down and does go down the gully, down the slope. But other than that, they've redirected the stockpile yard water to go to the center of the stockpile. And now it's going to the east toward their grass swale. They have a grass swale built on the east side. So it's going toward the east to the grass swale. Some of it just sits there in the central area. Pretty soon, and I guess Bill will tell you in the next few weeks, they're going to send it down to the basin where it should be going. But there's stockpiles in the way. So of course, you got to move those stockpiles out of the way to let that water travel that way. There's other problems. Old Colony Road, which is, as I understand it, as far as we know, a town road. It's owned by the town, but it's a dirt road. It's got some broken millings in there, but it's covered in dirt. It's a dirt road. It's, I'd say, 80% dirt. So when it rains and when vehicles travel on it, that earthy material comes down. But that's a whole different subject that'll involve the town looking at this, because it's a town road. They have also moved their anti-tracking pad. It was a little too close to, it was into our jurisdictional area. They've moved that away in the last, 2 weeks. They've moved that away from the jurisdictional area. And they're gonna put up a silt fence around, when they start moving these piles back, they will put up a silt fence around the whole outer edge, which was required with the first approval, I think in 2009, 8 or 9. They will complete that.
So I gather what you're saying, though, they've been working with you to correct things under your direction.
Yes, yes. two other factors. The rain is slowing things down. It's hard to move material in the rain.
But
And the other thing is the amount of material that needs to be moved is enormous.
But the fact is, they're in communication with you, working with you, and had
Yes.
created a plan and a guide in which direction they were going. Okay, that's the good news. Yes, sir.
Well, anyways, Bill Hoynack, Hoynack, representing the company, Troubled Colony Properties. I have been working with Erin, and I have a letter here I'm going to give to her and to the commission. When we first got this letter, I immediately sat down with the owners, and we did look at it, grabbed the old plan. I'm kind of new to the company, but I inherited it. Clearly, some things, I think, Nick, you've seen from the walk, that stockpiles have been moved. All the institutional controls were originally there. Over a period of time, with the transfer of people running the yard, institutional knowledge got lost, and the piles got bigger and bigger, and some of the things went away. Those are all being worked on, and they're being worked on to the satisfaction of Erin, I hope, and to the commission, but in a timely manner. And so what I have been doing is I have been tracking what is being done. It's being recorded on a site plan. And I have here tonight a letter to Erin and to the commission that kind of tailors all the things that Erin was kind enough to take one of the site plans that we had and kind of gave me her rendition of the things that she would like done. Okay, you can see the nice colors in there. And it was very helpful to at least say, okay, these are things that have to be addressed. So she said, would you go back and itemize all the things that I put down there for you? So it took me some time, and then we've had a couple walks and everything. And I think I have captured all the things that she would like to see in here. And from there, I'm able to say, item 1, is pending, 2 is complete, 3 is complete, 4 is in progress.
Very good.
Blah, 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 blah. So I think that's probably the best way to keep track of what's going on. And as I've said to Erin, it's a big piece of property, and she's correct. The biggest challenge there is kind of moving 30,000 tons of soil to different areas so that we can complete and put the riprap in the area where we're kind of draining the drainage was always designed to go to the east into a grass swale. I think you saw that, Nick. And that went to the detention basin down there. The west side that borders that brook, creek, or stream, whatever we want to call it down below there, that water was always designed to shed off the end. Even with the silt fence that was there 50 feet away, it was not designed to go down to the back. So what we're doing is that swale is open on the east side now, water is going there. We're also going to open up the back so that we can open that and connect it to the detention basin, and we're going to armor that so that water will also go down that way so that we can minimize anything that goes off there. And with the 2 layers of the silt fence that are on side and everything, moving everything away, there should be no water going down there. That fix for the eroded gully we talk about is a fairly quick fix. Unfortunately, that whole area that is built, that is underneath the soil that we have on there, is all asphalt. It's asphalt, it's concrete, it's brick, it's building, it's vehicles, whatever the gentleman previously had put there is there. And that is what went down. The good thing is that it was asphalt, it didn't travel very far. There was some dirt, as Erin said, that's down in the bottom. We're going to be able to remove that from the bottom, remove that, clean that out, stabilize the bottom, come up to the top, and stabilize that. And I think that was given in the plan that showed the cross-section of the riprap that we're going to bring in there to really armor it. But we want to wait before we go and do that until it dries out a little bit, because we don't want to be on the backside moving all that dirt and have it wet and then have something release and then all of a sudden that spills over the edge and creates more of a problem than we currently have right now. We anticipate the work in the stream and on the lower bank as well as the upper is no more than 2 days worth of work. And we have that equipment and could have it there as soon as we need it. So I will hand this, I guess, to you, Erin, or?
Yeah, do you have copies for the commission?
Yes, I do. I have 7 copies here.
Do you want to hand them to the commission as well? Thank you.
This plan plan that we talked about. We met out there again today, we walked, Erin had a couple other areas she wanted to check, and I believe she was satisfied from seeing the areas herself. So, again, our plan is to keep on working at this. We'd like to get it done as soon as possible. I can't say it's gonna be done by the end of May or the end of June, depending on what's going on, but moving all that soil is the key thing. So we'll keep working on it. I can tell you won't be hearing from me 11 months from now, that's for sure. Those chairs are way too uncomfortable to ever come back here again and have to sit there and talk to you about this. But, you know, we're a little disappointed in the way the operation went ourselves. It should have never got to this point, and it's being addressed, and
That's
we'll
pretty much
resolve
all we can ask for.
Yeah.
Let me put some, a little bit of spin on your site. I believe the state highway, which is South Broad Street, it's still a state highway. When they used to sand that hill, you ended up with all the sand in that.
Still coming.
It's still coming, but they're not sanding,
There's sand that comes down that area right in there, because we've been working with Paul Holmes from DOT, because that area was an easement up there, had to be all reseeded and stuff like that, but the water just comes flowing down from the state, comes down from the town road, and comes down from the substation, which is also a gravel. You can see the ruts in the road going up to the substation.
The electrical substation.
Yeah.
Sandy, yeah.
All that stuff comes down and goes right in. So as part of the restoration work we did for DOT on that easement that they wanted it all reseeded and loamed and seeded, we put hay bales and silt fence down there to try to minimize the amount of sediment that is going and has gone into that brook at that entrance. It just filled up with it. And so we can't stop it from going in there, but
that's why, I don't know how much riprap you want to put in, but I don't think we would have any objection if you were to maintain that brook more often. If I think of just contacting Aaron that says you want to maintain the silt out of that brook, this is before it goes under the track.
I'm talking about where it first comes onto our property off of Old Colony Road.
Substation.
Coming off the substation.
Yeah, I got it. Would you like this? I can show you right
But
here.
not the state highway side.
Yeah.
That's the same, but that's fine. I'm just trying to eliminate that sand getting throughout that whole wetland area.
So we are South Broad, down here, right here. Comes down here, the electrical substation, and this road, and all the water comes right into here and fills in the brook.
All right. Is the water that's coming down off of South Broad, does that cross here, Nick, and then go in?
Yeah.
See, so
And
it
it comes
parts.
down this road here.
Yeah, that's the curve that goes over. But coming down South Broad, there's it was at one time, when it got a lot of sand.
Is it your interest in changing the entranceway, or is it the state to have you come in here?
The state has come and they're the ones that propose that, we come through this area here, and that's kind of what drew our attention to it. When we came over there, it happened to be during a rain episode, and you could see everything was just pouring in here. Unfortunately, now that we blocked this off so it can't come in here and have some silt and hay bales around here, the water gets deflected, it comes into our property. But it is, it is what it is.
The state wants them discontinued junior, so entrance to the junkyard, and then come in this way.
Get a curb cut coming through there.
Yeah.
I'm talking to Casey.
Well, that's planning and zoning, that issue. It's just that, I'm a believer in that collect that sand where it comes in. Yes, you're gonna be in that brook, once every couple of years, but you're gonna be able to clean the sand out so it doesn't continue, and it doesn't silt up this wetland and that wetland and all the way down. You got a problem with that, Aaron?
This is easy for us to get at, to be honest with you, and if you gave us permission, we'd be more than happy to maintain this over here, because what happens, this chokes up and it just continues. It's sand. During low flows, you could walk straight across and there's probably a puddle of water. It's always across.
This whole area, you're on, the sand and gravel that you have on this area is remarkable. The junkyard put all the blacktop and whatever they needed.
And these sides, there's no sand. This is all asphalt on both sides.
Well, that's true, but the area is, the Route 5 is all sand down there. Magnificent
We'll be more
sand.
than happy to help.
Why don't you discuss that with Aaron, because I think that's a benefit to the overall wetland system.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to know, two things. This, especially from Commissioner Kern, if he likes the drawing that went out, that was proposed by the owner that went out for restoring that slope with the riprap. Is there any changes you'd like to see? Does everyone agree that that's good?
No, the only thing I'd like, Aaron, is that they can change the water course just by changing we talked about up where the piles are. They changed the water flow there. I think that would, because the rest of the piles are all stabilized. And once they get in there and start moving around to put the riprap or whatever you requested them to do, they're gonna disturb it, and then we're gonna have the erosion problem again, where all the asphalt had come down, where we had the two ravines.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like them just to get the water to go a different direction than it is now, where we met and looked at the bank. If they did that, that would be 90% of the problem with the erosion. And then the other 10% of the problem, they need to remove the sandy fines in the brook that wash down in there. You talked about going around some of the young sapling trees. So, I mean, they know what they need to do. It's just when they go in there, I like them to do it all at one time, then get out. So we're not going to be in there for a week moving stuff around. And I think the gentleman we met with out there, he's got the same direction that I had. What's the best way to do it? But for now, I'm going to take a ride out there and stop in there tomorrow and see if they fix that where the erosion is, where the piles were. If you could direct the water some other place, that would take care of 90% of our problem.
It is, it's going to the east side now.
It is going to the east?
The only water that still gets there now is anything that comes off and hits the pile, because we can't stop that. But there's 3 sets of hay bales in that area, water's being held, and everything is going to the other side of the property.
Okay, that's fine.
So I guess I would like a little clarification on your timeline. What happens next? Is the cleaning out the stuff in the stream happen next? Is that the next item?
As I said, and I'm going to refer to what I just handed out, and I know everyone has a chance to read it. What I'll be more than happy to do is to give Aaron updates on a monthly basis. If you're okay with that, this same letter right here, I'll just be revising them where they're pending, they're either complete or they're in progress or something like that.
That sounds fine to me.
To show what's going on, but there is no, because there's so many things that still have to be done, we are not doing them, okay, well, we're gonna wait until we do this to do the next one. We may have 2 crews doing things simultaneously, and that's the only way we're gonna do it. What we really have to do is, in order to get to the south and the western portion of the property, is we have to move those sand piles. And next week, we're going to be able to get to the back of the property, finally moving soil, and then we'll be able to work from south to west. And then once we get all that done and we get the water to the detention basin like that, then we're going to start working on the northern piles and everything. And so we're going to go at it from multiple angles, and that's why I'm saying it's going to take a few months to get resolved, because we have to flop all this stuff and reinstall everything. But once it's done, Aaron acknowledges today that once we have the whole area opened up, it's easy to go around and do your daily inspection. Look and see if silt fences are in place, make sure nothing's over there, making sure everything's is functioning as it should. Right now it's so jammed you can't even get back there to look at some things. So it's going to make it from a management and evaluation standpoint a lot easier when we do this. So I think the easiest way to do is just update this, and then if Aaron has questions, you have questions, or you want to come to the site, please do. Like I said, it's just going to be work in progress.
Bill, where's the stream removal on this? Is it on here?
Yes, it's down on the last page. It's the second bullet from the bottom. Remove
Okay.
asphalt and gravel on the lower portion.
All right, does that mean you're going to do it last?
No.
This isn't not in any order.
No, we're going to be doing any of these in any order that we can get to them first. And like I said, once it dries out, we have to go between the piles. In order to get to the gully, we actually have to remove 2 piles. because the excavator can't fit in there, and even if it could fit in, it can't swing its arm to load the rock that we want to put in there. So we have to move probably 6,000 tons of material from both sides just to be able to get a big 330 excavator in there in order to do all that type of work. So it just makes sense to do it progressively. And if we get a good period of time and there's no rain and he's over in that area, we just may go ahead and just fix that. But we have to move the machine. We're going to start at the bottom first, so we have to mobilize the machine to the bottom, get over there, fix the bottom of the stream, take the stuff out of the stream, then come back up to the top. And because we can't drive up like we used to, we have to trailer it. So now we have to schedule a trailer to come and bring this big excavator up to just to the top of the yard, but that's the way it's got to be done, and then we'll fix that. So everything is important to be done, and I know that that is very important, and it is on our list to get done as soon as possible.
Well, it'd be nice to move the piles once.
Correct.
All right, and I understand why it's at the bottom of the list, and that's great. And you stabilized the 90% of the problem that was out there. So I think you're right. If you can move the piles once and they're gone, and then you can go in and do your thing. And you're right about probably 55 or 60% of this removal of the sand is going to be at the bottom. And all you're going to do is stabilize the bank. And I think we're back on track to where we want to be. The minimum amount of disturbance where those two piles are that are already stabilized, the fences are still there, just that they're covered with dirt.
Correct.
The less damage you do, the less erosion we'll have. I don't need to tell you, you know.
Yeah.
So I told them, Jim, to see if they could get somebody to take the piles away instead of moving to another location on the lot. It may be easier just to remove them from sight. So hopefully with...
Well, we're actually moving some of that soil to places where it has to go. So it's I think since Aaron came out 2 weeks ago, we removed something like 65 truckloads of soil just from that back area to try to get to the swale. So we're going to be able to move. This is, you know, the busy time of the season. Construction's taken off. A lot of that is bedding materials and structural materials that people buy.
Yeah.
So we know that we've got to get that out there. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to do a piece of it and not be able to finish it, because now we just created another problem, and once we open it up, it's going to be a big area that's going to be open, and more water's going to rush in there.
Right.
So, you know, Mother Nature just hasn't been helping us as of late. I mean, it's great for the water table, but it's terrible if you're trying to do some construction work up there.
Yeah, we know.
Okay, very good. Keep up the good work.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good working with them, Aaron, too.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing else to come before us tonight. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, the meeting be adjourned.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Hey.
Aye.